So let's move on to Mr. Vincente.
Great, thank you. I'm really honored to be here, and I thought this morning's panel was pretty illuminating and provided a good skeleton to have a discussion here, and I'd like to put some meat on those bones. So as a teacher on the ground, I have like really 5 things I think I can bring to this discussion about teaching quality. And the first is about professionalizing and respecting teachers. We heard the panelists this morning talk about the need to elevate the stature of this profession, and in ways beyond increasing teacher pay, which would be also helpful for my rent in New York City, by the way. But I think it starts back with teacher training and certification, and we heard about that a great deal this morning and just right now. And I think we need to put teaching as a profession on the same playing field and in the same genre as medicine, law, and engineering. The early years of teaching are this intense crucible period, and new teachers need preparation that is more than, here are the keys to your classroom is kind of a cliche we hear a lot, right? And here's the book and figure it out. Teaching your first year is kind of like trying to fly an airplane and build it at the same time. It's a very intense learning process. And so I have always wondered why we don't model teacher training more like medical residencies or apprenticeships in engineering. Those experiences where you mimic the job of the master, the professional. That's how you learn to do the real job of teaching. I think a lot of students come into the teaching schools of education thinking that they're going to teach a subject area. I'm going to teach math, okay? When really that's only 1% of the pie, right? And so you're a counselor, you're a therapist, you're teaching children how to be human beings. So, and in a lot of ways, that is stuff that schools of education, no matter how well designed they are, it's just hard to learn in a classroom. You have to learn that with your cooperating teacher. So I've just always been baffled by things like why aren't student teaching programs designed so that you are in the classroom before the first day of school with your cooperating teacher? I mean, so many programs start after the first day of school in September because most colleges, are not designing their placements ahead of time. And we talked earlier about, schools could do better at making sure there are no rooms with substitutes on the first day. I mean, we could get our student teachers in the building during that critical 2 weeks of time at the beginning of the year when teachers are building classroom culture and laying down the train tracks on which their train of content will move and teaching procedures and all of that stuff I think gets lost in a lot of traditional student teaching programs right now that only last 3 months a college semester. So I think it starts way back there with that. I think one story that can just illuminate the sort of college, the undergrad to school of education pipeline for people listening is I was an outstanding chemistry student, not to brag. I did very well in my undergraduate career, and I was never once asked what I wanted to do with it. I think the assumption from day one was that I would sort of replicate what my professors were, that I would go and follow in their footsteps, and that was the expectation. And then on probably the last month of school when one of them said to me, so what are your plans? Which graduate school of chemistry are you applying to? And all that, I said, well, I'm going to be a teacher. And the look was shocking to me because they said, are you sure? And it wasn't like, are you sure this is going to be very challenging for you? It was like, are you sure that you want to do that? Like there was just such a lack of respect. What a mistake you're making. And then the conversation that ensued after that, I was almost offended. I think it actually emboldened me to go faster and away from, a traditional lab career or research and into the teaching career. 'Cause it's like that's our best students should be pushed that way, in my opinion. And that just wasn't there. So my first thing is professionalizing and respecting teaching as a profession. The next thing is, once you get there, to have it be an intellectually rigorous experience. We want our smartest people to feel like when they get into their school communities that they are being challenged at their highest level. We have to build communities where teacher-to-teacher talk is nurtured, where the pedagogical conversations are at such a high level that you want to go to work every day because you love kids, of course, but because you also know there's that part of your brain that's going to be asked really challenging questions by other people working on the same really difficult problems as you. I'm very interested in leveraging educational technology. It's a big part of my classroom. But I think we also need to like expand our definition of what innovation is. And I think we have to think of it as like mental innovation. We want to make intellectually rigorous experiences for teachers because they feel like they can test new things out, they can experiment with their classrooms and with their curriculum and their instruction. We have to let them know that if they want to try something new in their classroom, Randy was kind of alluding to this earlier, they're not going to get their head chopped off. I would say take it a step further. We want to invite teachers to, if they think that something is going to work better, that they should try it. They should know who else in their building is already doing it well. We should be like getting them into that person's classroom so that they can see it happening live, and then they should be back in their own classroom trying it, and their administrators there not in an evaluation role, but in a support role to see that. And the first thing that principal should do is say, nice job for trying that. Like this sort of fear of like, I'm gonna stay within the lines because this has sort of always worked for me and no one's gonna knock on my door because it's working. I think that just takes the sort of enthusiasm, the mental rigor out of teaching. So that brings me to my third point, which is creativity. I think it's absolutely essential that teachers be allowed to be flexible and creative with their curriculum. And it just is not going to happen if you're teaching to the test and standardized testing. I'm probably preaching to the choir in many ways, but you have to wake up in the morning and know that you're going in to teach lessons that you are really passionate about. You have to wake up and say, I am going to love what I am teaching today. I have put thoughtful care into crafting the lessons leading up to this, the one I'm doing today, and the ones that are coming afterwards. And I think that kind of like love of what you're teaching is infectious in the best possible way. Like your students cannot help but be sort of just kind of caught up in the charisma if it's something that you have chosen to teach. And that is so often lost when we say that the ultimate measure of our students' understanding is the test at the end of the year. And we're going to measure schools by that, and we're going to rank teachers, and we're going to compare them to each other based on those test scores. I mean, it's like taking all of the wind out of your sails when the lesson that you have to teach is not really inspired by something you care about in the world. So I think that, I hope people ask me about that later, but I think a lot of that comes from project-based instruction, portfolio systems, alternative types of assessments that are really much more authentic. They allow students to have more ownership and allow teachers to really teach what they're passionate about. This next one is, my fourth point is collaboration over time. I think that there has to be an expectation in schools that we are, as teachers, regularly reflecting and critiquing interdependent curriculum. I feel an extreme pressure to teach certain skills in my class because I have been working with the teacher who teaches in the grades before me, the teachers in the grades before me, for years. And we meet, and we talk, and we have conversations that are like arduous in the best possible way about what are you working on with your students, how am I gonna extend that next year, and then I know I feel motivated to work that much harder in the year of teaching I have those students because I am also having those conversations with the teacher after me. And those kind of things can be systematized, they can be mechanized, they can be built into the structures of schools, and I think good school leaders know how to do that. I think it's really important that teachers figure out how to have this, I call it like teacher-to-teacher talk, where they are leveraging the content and the skills from year to year. So you're articulating curriculum over years. And that is, I think someone said this morning, like, that is sometimes the not sexy work, because it's just really difficult. It's like, it's painstaking. You've got to make documents that are living, that everyone invests in, that you go back to year after year, that you examine and you hold each other accountable to. So I think this interdependence of each other's curriculums is really an essential part. And I would love if people ask me more about that. You can work in literacy teams, or you can rethink the way your department works. The traditional department models, you meet to do purchasing or ordering or lots of logistical things. But what if your science team really got together to talk about teaching science and to look at student work together, and then to talk about how is this working in this grade and what can the students do next year? So I think that is a really essential component, collaborating over time with the teachers. The most powerful source of PD is the other teachers in your building. talking about teaching. My last point is, was talked about a lot this morning, but it's a focus on teacher evaluation and feedback as being for the purpose of teacher growth and not ranking teachers in schools. So I think there has to be systems and policies for teacher feedback that emphasize teachers growing their craft as opposed to being evaluated. And there's so much overlap there, but principals who do it well understand that feedback on your teaching practice should be about improving your practice and not just figuring out how to sort the teachers in the building. And I think people on the panel this morning talked about, you know, you could use the language of we have extraordinary teachers and that are doing extraordinary things, like Randy said, or you can have, you know, in every mass distribution, there's most people are average. You can choose your semantics carefully, but in the end, I think you're trying to shift people who are new and growing their skills up a level, and the people who are doing well to great, and the great teachers up to exemplary, and the exemplary teachers move on to being models and coaches and school leaders. And I think that pipeline just has to, I think that pipeline is catalyzed when the feedback system is not just for evaluation, but it's for growing you. It's about setting goals, connecting teachers with coaches that can help them work on those goals, and it's, at the end of the day, always about having a really rich dialogue. I think the days of, you know, your evaluation comes on a piece of paper, they just have to be gone. Every teacher feedback has to be a conversation. It has to be a conversation about what went well, what you want to do differently, what are students getting out of it, are they getting what you intended them to get out of it, and the conversation is really where it counts. So I'll just finish there that teacher growth should be the focus and not just teacher evaluation, and that principals that really see their jobs as being the lead instructional person in the building and not the lead administrator can make that happen.
Thank you.